So we'll just do the short opening prayers, refuge, and for measurables. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all mother sentient beings bound us as the sky have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings boundless as the sky have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Page 13. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the two vehicles and their combination according to the dispositions and likewise the mental capacities of sentient beings.
Good afternoon. Then I go get on Bardo, say, Tibet Bardo, did you? Some road, some road, Mandawa, Gelatine, Padola, Tenea, Mumechina, Rangi Madok, Gelatine, Padola, yes.
Rangshin Maduk.
Rangi Madova, Gitarawa, Tapa de Batini Maimba, Benakova Rangi Madova.
So, Bardo, the word Bardo in Tibetan literally means intermediate state or in between, something that's in between, something that is like kind of outside of the ordinary, and also has the connotation of not being, so the Bardo, like itself, also is not really existent. It's empty of inherent nature, substantial nature or existence. And there are typically 6 classifications of Bardo states, intermediate states. So the first of the 6 Bardos is the Bardo of birth, and that begins when you incarnate, like in our case as a human being. So from the time that you take birth, we don't know, what we were in the past and former lives, but in this life, we're all human beings. So we took birth in a human form, and we're now still in the Bardo of birth. So it's like from the birth time until death that is considered the Bardo of birth.
Tiniti Harkala, not to teach Harriori, Malam Pardo, stick Harriori, Malam say the Jetan Tanga to Niku do young, what is Mandawatidoa. Tin Nane, Malam say the Mudia or Koran different stage in the Wajibed. Koraya, Malami, Kotin, Tiniji Chimbikalada. When you are married, Vina, Koran, Tikabla, Jig Malamia, the Jigs Hombona, Dubona, Tiniji, Young Deati, Tiki, Telamata, Mendo categories, and something Pardo, Malam Pardos,
so Milam Chebek did Chico, Yana did not the Nikuba.
Kuba in a tin on the co, Nikudana, Hako,
yeah.
In a Malama, Sorry,
so the second Bardo is the Bardo of dream, and so that happens, of course, within the Bardo of birth. So it's like that state that we enter into, and of course the sleep state has many different stages, but it's a stage that has kind of, active experience and phenomena arising, like that is usually, like dreams. So we have the state that we enter into when we're dreaming, and this is considered to be a Bardo. So, and sometimes there's good dreams, sometimes bad dreams, but that is all considered to be the Bardo of dream.
In a Mazuni cook, but on here, you put a decent order with your race, then you want to tell them.
And actually, the sleep process is not entirely different from the death process. So there's actually a very similar process of dissolution that happens during the stages of sleep as we fall into sleep that is very similar to what happens at the time of death.
The end of having anything on the saturated temper, so saturated temper, you could do that. You told your Takeda, Jikinico, Chawa Himbal and Jogmatawa, so go to the heavy no Chaldoa, then saturated temper is only saturated temper. Nature male can be Gabla, then young Tigmatoda. Kachina Sarala, so what Nigungu, Sarawanga, Himakitan, everybody. Tine Chumela can be Galatin, young ones need so cold because so told you with or tene
Rochik legere.
out to this Nikudu to tene made long like can be called tene not to touch of this Mandawa or what I also, but at the end of which is.
So for instance, what happens when we die is that the physical elements dissolve like one into the next. The first stage of dissolution is when earth dissolves into water. And so this happens also when we sleep, like our limbs become heavy, we become, really we like kind of fall into a dull sort of state that's approaching sleep. We can't move our limbs, and this mimics also similar kind of what happens at the time of death. And then water dissolves into fire, and at that time also when we're falling asleep, there's kind of like a shift that happens in terms of like warmth of the body, where the warmth, there's a warmth that happens kind of more internally, I think. And then when fire dissolves into wind, then our breathing shifts, our breathing becomes different, for instance, in the sleep state, or when we're falling asleep. And so then we kind of like really fall asleep when wind dissolves into consciousness, and at that point we might start snoring, for instance. So it's like a real shift that occurs in terms of consciousness there.
That's sometimes for those who person as a meditator, one year they will tell me, busy channel, in a young that can read my but in young, who gomja baby can never young, could Shiva, Deva, Nam talking Jesu Madama, what Niji Yungula, young Matota, named Otela, sometimes Bardos, Labgoris.
So then the third Bardo, which also occurs during the Bardo of birth, is the Bardo of meditative concentration. So this is what is entered by meditators. So it's a different state of consciousness. Because ordinarily, when we're not in this bardo, there is the ongoing stream of proliferating thought forms that we follow after, we engage in, like our minds are very busy, all sorts of thoughts. But if we fall into meditative absorption, meditative concentration, then there is a like blissful, peaceful state of kind of bliss and peace where we're able to disengage with the ordinary process of thinking and not follow after the thoughts that arise in the mind. And so that is called the Bardo of meditative concentration. Then we have the Bardo of death, which is what happens. That's when the Bardo of birth comes to an end and we're entering into the Bardo of death. And this is usually kind of what happens with the coarse breakdown of the physical body, the elements, the stages of dissolution, where the four elements, coarse elements, dissolve one into another. Into the other, and then we transition, out of this life.
Tineda hine chiduta nangetine temrem telatine datinema telachuni vados.
And then there is what's referred to as like the inner dissolution. And then following that, the sort of beginning stages that start to happen with what we refer to commonly as Bardo. And this is the Chuni Bardo, or the Bardo of Dharmata.
Choosing experience
And then there is the Bardo of becoming, and that is kind of what happens at the end of what we typically call the Bardo experience after death, when kind of all those experiences of the Chuni Bardo kind of come to a conclusion, and then there's the experiences that are starting to indicate where your next birth will be. So it's kind of like, you know, the period of, most of us don't have a choice, but some might, and so then there's like, you know, one sort of chooses their next incarnation, or the consciousness is led by its karma into its next life, its next incarnation. So today, you know, what these teachings are really covering are the three bardos of the Bardo of death, the Chuni Bardo, and the Bardo of becoming. I mean, I just say Chuni Bardo, but I think we could say the Bardo of Dharmata, but yeah. Are there other names? I don't know.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, Bardo of Dharmata. But it's sort of misleading because it's not what it sounds like necessarily, you know. That's why I like to usually go with the Tibetan term, Chuni Bardo.
Okay, so maybe we can look at the text, maybe we could read that. Jamne Poncho Malu Lamarpor Jigdu Mogu Nusho Tapoye Sorwandam so to again says. So maybe read together this.
So we can read the first verse. Refuge and embodiment of all three jewels in the form of the Lama, with intense devotion and longing we supplicate you. Beholding us with swift compassion, please protect us from the terrifying, perilous path of the intermediate state.
Okay, that tell Karsina Tezona, so Jamne Poncho, Jamne Poncho, Sonda, Hambodan, Jamne Poncho, some Kachimbo, Sanje, Kesum, Chuchi, Kinyamantella, Yenduris. Da, T. Gendutella, I'm not so true, Yamlan, Tambochi, Pablo, Poncho, Engo, Sanje, and Chula, Yan, take a talk, Gendula, Engo. Taking the talk can do Sena Lama and Trichigo. In a young, the Fenner Karsena automatically Kachagorsena, so Chechote, a chewed hapu yore, and do talk dance hapare, Tended that Yemen Tatote, Karcha de Yorsena, that Chago, Sanje Chagores, Sanje Tian, not to Tandiki. Sanje Lama, Lama di Tandiki, not so Karsego Chuting and Lama. Teddy in a young Tatoti, Karicha Lavna, Sanje Tang, Lama Tang, around the Samsung Jala, Chipacha Yorwa. Think Lama ina Sanje, Sanje ina Lama. Teza Mazi bit Rank Sentian, Lamare, Rank Sentian, Sanjeris, or that entity, Temohibat, Nijachin, Dunjo Tabo, Montanazo, Sorwan Depore, Sorwan Devia, Jumsan Katin, Reason Karsana, or talking to Patelita, Jap to source.
So here, as we are supplicating the Lama, who is the embodiment of the three jewels, and so this is very important that, you know, so at the time of death, for instance, we're really wanting to remember our refuge, the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma that the Buddha taught, and the companions of the path, who are the Sangha. So at first, when relying on the three jewels, we have to rely very much on all three. So we have to listen to the Dharma, we have to rely on the spiritual companionship of the Sangha, but ultimately, the two jewels of the Dharma and the Sangha, have kind of served their purpose, and really it is said that ultimately the only real ultimate refuge is the Buddha. And what is meant by the Buddha and the Lama are like one and the same. And the Lama being the one who teaches us the Dharma, but the essence of the mind of the Lama is the ultimate meaning of Buddha, and actually our own mind is also ultimately no different from that of the Buddha. So there is this understanding of the unity, of the unification of these three that one comes to, that one understands one's own mind to be the Buddha, and that the Lama is actually one's own mind and that of the Buddha, that the indivisibility of these three. So that is ultimately, one is really taking refuge in one's own mind, which is no different from the meaning of the Buddha. And so that is kind of when we supplicate, please protect us as we move into this terrifying, perilous path of the Bardo.
Tinin duje meta rangzok mo somten jewa jeben tande chewa tasu bi usi jume lu je tamudo sebi kenji sai lama je esa.
So I think just up to on page 1, the end of the middle line, we'll say, we can read together. Compounded phenomena directly show the natural condition of impermanence. At the end of birth stands death, it is certain. The material form of our illusory body cannot last forever. Exalted Lama, please hold us with loving eyes.
다가 저 개체쇼 대태종에다 메타바 세야데 자침보에 손에다 메타바 진용찬 roughly 나도 가하고 뭐 다시 레삼고 요르기나데 그 셈땡을 yap고 말이다. 알아봐. 이제 메타바 마범이나 근데 아주 다 메타로 겁나더니 투주세 참요 참 자치고 휴이 뭐 하고 요래 그가 나오게 그런게 지다 단다 양고 야고 요나 그러와지 아무도 당당 요나 되네 그 메타와직 삼노다나 어때 배주치야 알아와 투수 돌아 못하냐 근데 모멘tum 제그고 와지 하고 그랬어 근데 이난 가서 주치토 그랬어 대마도 비기다 가서데 주치고 치고 개와로고 삼노더니 투수 좋아한다고 와 투수 자체も 하고 요 말에 스티인데 딱 조치고데 주치야 게트네 메타바다 자체모데 손에 메타바들 때네 되네 조마진케나 주치야 고카브라 그레스 주치기 요나야 가지 이스레로 요로와 되네 레로 텐데게 되네 메타바하고나 되네 레로데 빵하네 되네 존주좀이야 팬토 그레스 되네 메타바 공비나다 텐데게 지용을 까라 되네 제고 모성도 토야라 되네 메타바 팬토 그레스 다 메타바데 내가 지금 쇼레스
So this is really reflecting the main point of this verse is to contemplate the truth of impermanence and to sort of get a sense of how precious time is. Because like right now, we don't really fully understand just how quickly, time is being lost. And so when we reflect upon impermanence, and there's really this deep sense of like every moment is a moment lost, that it is where this life is being exhausted moment by moment very quickly actually. And even though, and we tend to think we put so much off, we always put things off, thinking, oh, in the future, oh, I'll really practice when I really get the time, when I really get the conditions, in the future, later on. And because we're not really aware of impermanence, and so we're not fully getting a sense of how precious time is. And so if somebody deeply contemplates impermanence and really becomes aware of impermanence, then there is this sense of urgency, like, one is really influenced or inspired to not waste a single moment, and so to really dedicate oneself right now to the practice of Dharma. So it helps to abandon laziness and apathy, and to really conjure a sense of urgency and diligence. And so that is the result of really taking the truth of impermanence to heart, contemplating impermanence, is that it really helps us to conjure diligence.
As a technology level, to so young, to so trollano, Jalambo Yorwa, technology, Pento Yore, in a young bay, to so trolla diana, Metzetrola diana, Nitsumoji, Hunguyo, steam, then the top half one to achieve more.
And so this is especially pertinent now, in these, especially with the rise of so many devices, technological devices that have lots of options for diversion. And so we, really with that, we waste so much time. There's so much opportunity to just kind of like, lose a lot of precious time. And so if we contemplate impermanence, then we will really, we won't fall kind of victim to these diversions. We won't let ourselves lose time or waste time in this way.
Well, that the Japan to Tangi Huan, Yamlan Kwachati, Karsana to Pacha Karakongo, teaching Borwa, the Chuchin and Chuk Kwachayuna. True Tengri, the main Batanji tank, Kapata, also what any water you can boil. Then she got a true Tengmara.
So it's really, what we have to understand is that everything that we do is creating imprint. So if we are remembering the Dharma, if we're focusing on Dharma, if we're practicing, that's creating an imprint for Dharma. If we're looking at our phone, then we're creating imprint. And everything that we look at is creating imprint. And those things will affect us at the time of death and in future lives. So we have to be very aware of the imprints that we're choosing to take in.
Benanga Pondaya Tangiro, Yamena, Bena Sanji do Tangiro, what that he would do. Wachaka Kyochin at any level.
So, and particularly at the time of death, like whatever imprint is stronger is what will arise at that time. So, like if our imprints for thinking of the Buddha are what's strongest, then that's what will arise in our mind. If they're images that we've habituated ourselves to through different images and such, that we see on our phone, like those kind of images are what will arise in our mind.
아주 박자 쇼도 깨끗한 아직 다음에 박자 쇼는 팀마지 동하는 되기로 와. 얘네한테 정도고요 말이지. 근데 매일 가면 되는 배선지는 양도 공부해 루틴. 제가 나 얘기다 가리는 게 너만도 안 하고 있는 양도 동미나 근데 거기 박자도 되고 그래서
And so that's why, sometimes, the practices, when we of cultivating love and compassion, reciting the Mani mantra, and then sometimes there's a thought like, why so many? Why like so many accumulations of mantra? And it's because of this, because to really create a strong imprint, it requires repetition. And so again, if we remember the Buddha again and again, if we recite, commitments, of vows and, again and again, that's also why there's always this repetition, because it creates a strong imprint.
이나다 단단한 소리 뭐 처음에 내 감로 비나트네. 당원에 지나 맞지 상감 멤버 로파요와 데니도요나 데니 베팽기요서와 베는가 소다니 매튜 어떻게 차로와 같이 오르면 그런 괜찮나요리 항상 소요리 베메시비 기타데 항상 그 소장도 그 카펜킬라 칸디지나 소장이요리 이나요 맞죠 상감 멤버 기타네 지금 오만이 베나 혼테지고 동대베 가라데네 고관베 샘마이바 티간티 투도아 Tiene ngato tis man samja yang ngatele mewandu jini yang ko tis ya mekta ko so lang do. Ota tini so do lang yo sarwa. Na mina tiene ta do lang do.
So, when somebody dies, especially like a Buddhist practitioner, it's really important for Sangha members to support that person in the Sangha who is dying, so that, that they can help them through that process to remember. So for instance, there was a young boy, actually he was only in his 20s, he was maybe 24, this was quite some years ago. He died of a horrible cancer, and he was in an incredible amount of pain, but he was so, he really verbalized how much he wanted to have, a death that was going, that would support, to practice the Buddha Dharma. So a lot of Sangha members showed up for him, and came, he was in hospice at the time, and sat around and chanted Mani mantra with him. He couldn't chant at that point, but you could see his pain, just having the support, it completely changed his kind of complexion and disposition. That seemed like the pain sort of was eased by that. And sometimes and Drupon spent a lot of time actually coming, to his side at that time. And when he wasn't there, people would say he would Oh, so when like he, if there were Sangha members who showed up, his family members would say, or if Drupon showed up, he would sort of brighten up, and kind of sit up a little bit and look around. He really was impacted by that. And then when we weren't there, that he was in a lot more pain.
So interesting too, so this Dharma and this worldly sense is kind of truly different, So actually he has brother to twin.
He had a twin brother.
So we, Sangha member and me, we chanting, he's just kind of meditate, so he's no feeling like face is changing, so just he's extremely relaxed, so he listening everything, he can look and he listening. But the opposite, his twin, his brother come, and the brother they love, he cry, and his brother hugging him, he's cry, and I love you, Lord, like that. But his pain is much worse. So there kind of he's worried. Yeah, he loved to the brother too, so kind of like they arise the concept, so he thinking about the brother and so much worse, so that's I think that nice.
Yeah, so it's not considered to be good. Like, I don't know if we have this concept in the West, but like, sometimes it seems like people feel when a loved one is dying that like they should express their love and concern for the dying one and like wail and cry and, but actually from a Buddhist perspective, that is considered to be potentially really harmful to the person who's dying. So you just don't. In fact, Tibetans like do not cry if they're in that room with a loved one.
Actually, there's kind of the suggestion is so these really loved ones maybe not showing.
They won't even come.
Right, and also they said some depending, but they're his possessions, so whatever.
They're also possessions.
Maybe just move.
Don't have the possessions.
Of course, in the bed, he cannot. Looking for his possessions, but if something he's see his possession or this mind or whatever, my jacket, I don't know. So that's the concept. Sort of like mind is good, everything is support, good meditation, chanting, extremely helpful. But same time, so something maybe attached to this mind, so that's
that could create problems for the person who's dying if there's something that causes them to have attachment arise.
But not all the time. So, yang something you also yang something you mudu karsana yang ko shenja ro ti siyasa ro pe na ma thok ma song ro some yang ro related relation je.
But it's not always that way because sometimes the person who's dying might have a feeling like, oh, I didn't get to see this or that person. And there might be like, if somebody shows up and then the person is able to like see them that final time, it kind of gives them a sense of closure or sort of satisfaction, like, oh, I was able to see them, now I don't have to focus on that. So it can be that it has the opposite effect. Like that, you wouldn't, that it would be important even if there's a lot of attachment there to be present or to show up. Yeah, so like actually by seeing someone that they really love, it actually helps them to release their attachment.
See him, so and also same thing actually one is the so we have monastery, so really thinking of he cares the monastery, he organized, he built the kind of engineering and everything, so his construction too, so but later on then he got sick in Lhasa, so not my hometown. So long time he not die. So everybody says he's very weak, he cannot eat. So suppose maybe he die, but he not really die. And then later on, says maybe he thinking about still monastery, so then he bring to the monastery. And so we finished the monastery, he just wheelchair and the people just took around, he looked, so we monastery finished, then he said, oh good, he next day passed. So sometimes, so his mind is very, sometimes, probably here too, West too, somebody want to see children and they're waiting for, so they see, that's it. So depending, so okay, so one more time.
And so then the next line.
Start lama, so we change the lama just. Say don't you him me panyam, menji me pen. Say come come and do some TV to have it say.
So the bottom of page 1, when our lifespan runs out and the power of the 4 elements declines, when medicines won't help and the appetite for food and drink wanes, when the time comes for body and mind to separate, please bless us to be free from attachment to this life. So then, following sort of this, then there is the dissolution of the 4 elements. So that is, he's going to go. So there's just the dissolution. And so he's going to talk about that in a little bit of detail.
La tene so lui de trubuio es lui de tromne tene tikenane da lui ke zo in bono te tene za long tigre chi ya ya da yene tene tanga so lu hipchu ro da hipshirna ro depend of chino te pardola da hipshirna ro la go so da hipshirna ro te la tene ya yegio es na so aduina ti ne ba no subo ne ba no to tene di sti yegio sarwa.
So this body, our physical body, is comprised of the 4, sometimes they're referred to as the 4 elements, sometimes the 5 elements. Together with that, there's the subtle body of the network of channels, the wind or prana, and the drops, or we say in Sanskrit, nada, bindu, nada, prana, and bindu. And so when the body is in a period of increase, so what happens is like from birth until about age 45, then all of these, the subtle body and the elements are in a period of kind of vitalization where everything is increasing. And then from 45, 50 on, it's the opposite. It's kind of in a period, it's in a phase of sort of breakdown or decline. And so that's why, you know, our hair turns gray, we start to get wrinkles and so on and so forth. And in the 6 yogas, it's said that actually your channels start to die off, like 2 by 2.
That is sooner or later. That telling us of Karigosana, the la Tambo Rafa, Nishtim to your is.
And so first there are there's this decline. This decline occurs as a type of dissolution. So they're like the 20 course 20 course stages of dissolution, I guess. And then there's also the dissolution of the 4 elements. And then there's a very subtle dissolution that happens after we would kind of physically pronounce someone dead. And this happens, there are the 3 stages of very subtle dissolution. It's kind of like the final stage of death. And so when the body is in this period of decline, so like the body ordinarily maybe is very strong and kind of there's a vitality, and then as it declines, then one becomes more frail, more fragile, and less, there's a real kind of a weakness that like one becomes weak. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 그래서 저로 중중들이는 되게 집어서 휴자도 그러고.
그래요?
야침뭐 자도 그래서.
So he said when we're young, we can lift really heavy objects.
I was young, I can pick up at least 250 pounds easily.
You won the barley sack lifting contest.
Yeah. But now I don't know, maybe this 60 pounds is maybe very hard. So anyway, that's joking. So that got to the temple with that is.
So that is, for instance, he said, a sign of decline of this dissolution process, starting to take place.
근데 소리의 풍부라 템베에서 소리의 풍부라 템베는 소리와 양충이 작그레스.
So then, when the aggregate of feeling declines or dissolves, then also the sensation, the faculty of sensation diminishes.
Tene dushiji pumbola tembe tene ta jingla chen namju ne be ripa that they memorize che ado that tene be le la wo yu be na ya tene dista ko medem ba da memorize che ala kale yores.
And then there's also the decline of perception. So with the decline of perception, this also is connected with the waning faculty of memory. We can't memorize things as well. We once did memorize things, like we can't remember. So there's the faculty of the memory really declines.
Tene dushiji pumbola tembe luji chawa jogmenus.
Kare lugi.
Luji chawa. Ta lo chung ne ya jog to bure chung to bure. Chi to gro hina te lo chung ja te chi to.
And as the faculty or the aggregate of formation or mental formation declines, then this also the agility of the body also declines. One can't move around as easily, one is not as fast, it's harder to keep up.
So we're talking about the mountain clutch, right? So if young people like this circumambulation is very easy, just but older people is not. So mountain clutch here is 37 miles. Yeah, 37 miles something.
The circumambulator.
Tene ta ti rawati sta ti jiliang kamrit. Tene sa kan kam ta sa ni botis cheba yosari ina da ko jimdi ko na kani sa in kam tendu tene lu kam hin ri so da sa kam teng be kala ta na so pakwa da so pe lo chung pu ba ba na fresh lo ta ro yong do ina da tene khida me wa tene na so ren ka do ta do jo na ya tene yong yo res.
So there's also then the decline of the elements. So the element of earth in the body, for instance, as this wanes or declines, when we're young, this is also like really connected to the appearance of the skin. When we're young and the skin is supple and fresh, and as we get older, it's like the complexion is more dull, there are wrinkles, it's sort of like dry and crepey, and so this is due to this decline of the element of earth. But we shouldn't be worried about those things.
But it's difficult to
That's what the the body is naturally decreasing. Mentally, to develop better chamba, develop
So, because this is natural and the body is going to decline, but this doesn't mean that our qualities of mind have to decline. In fact, it can be the opposite. It can be that as we age, all of the really beautiful inner qualities of love and compassion can really develop and grow much stronger. And so that's what really matters. Sorry? Oh, mochi. I'm not sure I totally get this, but when then the faculty of water declines in the body, then our kind of like our sweat ducts, or our process of the hydration in the body kind of changes, and there's less of it. And like when you're young and you sweat, I think what he was saying, it's like the sweat just kind of like rolls off. But when you're older, it's like this, it becomes clammy. Like your like your skin kind of sticks together and stuff.
I don't know.
That's what I understood. Is that right?
I think so.
And then with the decline of the fire element, then our digestion, really declines. The power of the digestive fires. We can't eat, things as easily as we could when we were young. And, more things upset our stomach and so forth.
long come la tempes. Tajatanga to long tela, Tajatang Carrier Lavina, long tela, that's all Carsenanga to Zata, long tongue, so the long day, never chehoji, take long ticket at Chavamon, Carsenanga to long chili or his body.
And then as the wind element declines, so that the channels and the winds are very connected, but the wind, kind of the vitality of the wind is really what kind of governs the mobility and agility of the body. And when the winds are, there's a lot of vitality in the wind, then we're very active.
Tatella carson long, Zabe long, yellow long market in it, body to mount functioning to
And so the body functions very much due to the vitality and movement of the winds. In fact, there are the 5 main winds or principal winds and the 5 branch winds. And so this really, they govern pretty much all the functioning of the body.
That's a very long until Kachi was in it. Make Toyaka long chiliores, make ombo. Tea didn't make ombo long chili, not very long to Calais, was a lot long day. Yamu nothing, not to make Zewhira, Mentoya. Tigana Yitine, a long navig ombo Kachi, Tangas of Santo Amjo. Tine, nai ombo. Or tell a jet long to abide Kawachi Lavina, make ombolas and metal to make the dollar bodies, make kila chioris. Tene Nawala Tene Chioris many toga. Tene Nala sank mocabro, not Gmail, Nido Ioris, long nisa. Tene ombola, Dawa Gambala do. What's the Jake Sornella? Tawano Giores. Tene so Tila not that sensation because Papi Nala my Papi Chilla my but Nijekta sensation. Chia Giores, Tin that so Tama. This Nyamro Giores.
So the branch winds are essentially what enable all of our faculties to function. So it's like why we see forms with our eyes and hear sounds with our ears and smell smells with our nose and experience the sensation of touch. So these branch winds, as they decline, like our vision is not as good, we can't hear as well, we can't smell as well, our taste, we can't taste things as well. And so we see this process happening as we age, and this is because those branch winds are declining. So they say that there's kind of each faculty has kind of a place where the winds reside, and like in the eyes, there's this what's referred to as the certain type of flower that's kind of where the wind of the eyes resides, and it's actually deep in the pupil. But this is where the wind that governs eyesight dwells. In the ears, there's like some very small kind of holes at the base of the eardrum, which is where the winds of hearing reside. In the nose, there are these two like small needle-like shapes that are where the wind of smell, that govern smell, reside. In the skin, for sensation, it's sort of like, or on the tongue, is kind of like the taste buds, that's around the edge of the tongue in a kind of crescent moon shape. And then the winds of sensation dwell in the skin, not on the outermost layer, but kind of like in between the more inner layers of skin and the outermost layer. So in any case, as we age, these also age, and their vitality declines, and that's why all of our faculties also decline as we age.
Ina da de yila kalonga chi da ne makapto lo kan do tene da ti khala ta nga so ji penna melon yi hi se nyamni yi hi ta nga so ji deeper ka se ko da yi hi te yorwa tele tene melon da wi yi hi la can be tene ta ji ka se ko de can be tene sem tene se wo hira me wa no cha yores.
So then there's also these very subtle kind of types of dissolution or breakdown that also occurs that is connected with the five wisdoms. So for instance, like when the mirror-like wisdom declines, the mind also becomes dulled. Like the faculties of mind the mind is not as sharp, and
maybe he discharged.
More dullness, in the mind.
Teneta nyamni yihela tembe teneta jik nyamni yiheti tene churwa yo churwa lamsang jok matobya tene yores.
So then with the decline of the wisdom of equanimity, this really affects sensation or the feeling, and so the yeah. So there's not as much sensation, or one isn't as able to sense sensations easily.
Tega na yita ngaso soto ihezo ta soto ihete ngone jire terido ngaso ji tanda karsega de AI no karsena ko storage ji temba ji yorwa kari yona tene bagila de chaya ota di temba do tene so lam so soto go mares.
So then with the decline of discriminating wisdom, it's kind of like we lose our mental storage space. He said, not like AI. I guess our minds are not like AI, so we can't just like store.
Used to AI, maybe.
Maybe it used to be like AI, but we lose that ability. This is also connected with the decline of memory.
Tene chawa drop ihe la so ta chawa drop ihe so da ke ta namjumel scale your wisdom je leka leya ina de chawa khani jo ko na ko scale kisi yobi na ya ta ya lo le ti scale te ten khale me wa chang yes.
And then with the decline of all accomplishing wisdom, we start to lose, certain skills. So it could be, that we were young, there were areas of real expertise and skill. And then as we decline, we lose many of those skills. We're not as, adept as we once were, and we, even something that we were once really expert in or skilled in, we're not so much anymore. We kind of really decline in our capacity.
Da hint chawa 말이 rafa 니실에 템바다 다데 general ngaza ta thanda kora heya la thani wo yo mari thina yang ko ta kale tene chagres general rafa nishire ta thanda to labya nishiro yo res.
Oh, okay. So what we've been talking about now is falls into the categories of these 20 kind of coarse factors of dissolution, and that this happens gradually, like throughout the aging process. So it doesn't.
Maybe we have already.
We have many of them already. So it doesn't necessarily indicate that we're really close to the death time, but this is kind of what the breakdown that starts to happen early on as we get closer to death.
다 디쇼를 다 양초 니바 차와 중화실을 템주서 다 고시야 다니고 그래서
the Jungwaji. But then when we're really approaching death, then there are the more subtle, there's a more subtle breakdown of the elements, the 4 elements that happens. It's like really right there at the death process.
tene sachuel tembe kapsus tene chita la karchi kita da ko lu tene ta lu one ko ya to go mares muchu menu things
So as
dina ta ko strength yo mares lu korana.
So the first thing that happens at this point is that earth dissolves into water, and when earth dissolves into water, the body loses all its strength. That's when the person who's dying maybe can't move their limbs anymore, and there's really kind of a loss of mobility that happens there, and the body becomes heavy.
대안하기 딱 출발하기도 하고 수고 모음에 나 모음에 봐 많이 봐 대자 마지게 되네 룰라 베직다 마 챙도 요하고 지 다데 대다 뭐요 그냥 통용아 오가야 태나 마사기도 너도 저같은 얘기 살아.
And there are a lot of strange sensations that can also happen at this time, like even apart from not being able to move, like the one might kind of feel like the body is like being tied up, or that one's sinking. And he's said he's experienced that from people who are dying, where they're like, help me, I need to sit up, because they have this sense that they're kind of sinking.
나한테 달라서 다 체다트니 요스 나한테 다트라트니 지 헤바들라트니 직다 히르시보메 바 토바다 페미즈다 포기도 되네 지베 상에 상아도 마도다 뭐니 니키라티 용구요 말레스
And the inner sign of like what consciousness experiences at this time, it can be that there's kind of this feeling like things become really foggy or murky, or maybe even smoky, that there's kind of a lack of, the clarity that the consciousness usually has sort of disappears, and there's kind of this muffled murkiness that happens. And then when water dissolves into fire, so when water dissolves into fire, one loses control over one's bodily fluids, so that's when the dying person might, pass urine, or, that they are drooling, or there's, like snot, or, some fluids from the nose, that are released and things. And there might be the feeling of kind of being submerged in water with internally for the consciousness at that time, and the body, or the sensation of being cold, becoming very cold. And then there's kind of some hallucinations that might happen internally, or like something sort of like mirage, like visions, or yeah, so you get the vision, it really becomes like splotchy and unclear, like there's maybe just the further loss of kind of the clarity or sharpness of consciousness. So then when fire dissolves into wind, then the heat of the body starts to disappear. Like even the people who are still living can feel that the body is becoming cold. So at this time, there's connected with the practice of Po, as it says that kind of avoiding the consciousness should avoid exiting out of the lower openings, the 8 lower other openings, and there should only be the opening, at the crown, the aperture of Brahma, is where one wants the consciousness to leave at the time of death. And there are signs of this, for instance, if the person who is dying, because if the consciousness leaves out of any of the other doors, then it's like a sure kind of sign of continuing to wander in different states of samsara, cyclic existence. But if the consciousness leaves out of the aperture of Brahma, then it could indicate, achieving Buddhahood, or being transported to Sukhavati. So this is a good sign. And if for the person who's dying, what happens is with the warmth becomes isolated, like it becomes the heart, there's still some warmth at the heart, and then if that warmth moves from the heart up to the crown, there's warmth there, then that's an indication that the consciousness is leaving out of the aperture of Brahma. But if there is not warmth in the heart or in the crown, then this might indicate that the person is taking rebirth in the lower realms. Especially if there's warmth in the lower appendages, then that might indicate, or you know, that somewhere in samsara. So, you know, it's a little bit hard in the West because there's so much interference that happens usually with the death process. You know, many people die in a hospital, and you know, there's so much medication that's given, or often they hook them up to machines like breathing devices and so forth. And so it's hard to just have like a natural process of dissolution. But you know, of course, our wish is that it's as natural as possible, that we're supported, like that example of the Sangha member who died, you know, by Dharma being around us at the time of death, you know, and that we kind of, that our death process is interfered with very little, so that we can be led by anyone who is trying to help assist us, you know, through that process of death.
어떻게 딱 대긴 가서 좀 차이도 있는 거 매튜 그 코로나로 진행되는 딱 뭐네 그 어쩌게 코로나들이 총성스러워 어쩌게 양도요래 되는 비자양요 말에 되는 특가는 코로나 발라요 말에 당연 발라도 뭐 있는 양 삼성 발라도 항상 가는도 이나 것들이다 근데 너 지지들 뭐 공자가 나이 관계는 지지는 오는 걸로 이렇게 안에 총성스 어저 처음마다 되게 생각을 빼먹어요.
So Matthew, he didn't finish the story about when Matthew, the Sangha member, died. That it was really auspicious because there were some Sangha members present, Drupon Rinpoche was present, and those in his family that were kind of more of a challenge, like his brother, whom he was very attached to, and his father, who was really like kind of a born-again Christian, and really didn't like him having this Buddhist practice. You know, he wasn't there either, and so this ended up being really beneficial for Matthew, because it was like that moment of death was very peaceful. It was like there was a final exhalation, and after that final exhalation, he didn't breathe in again.
No pain. So also before die, so they are chanting because he can see, you know, so he cannot really directly speak much, but also he don't have anything machine or so he look, you know, so like, and then close eyes, he passed away. But he really devoted to.
He was really devout. Yeah.
And he decided, so he was na Kanda Kaine Menatine, Amala Labiorba, Mambachi goes to Hontali, Yapolis, Nahinegal. I go, she go to Haku, Shiamakoyomani.
And he was so clear about what he wanted. You know, he told his mother, like, I'm 100% Buddhist. I want to die, you know, in like as much, you know, in accord with the Buddhist kind of way as possible. I want Drupon Rinpoche to help me and to be there. And so it was very easy to assist him because he had been so clear and made it so clear to his mother, what his wishes were.
Yeah, also this, I think, the powerful, devotion. So I am too much traveling, but that time exactly there, time, and all the Sangha members who went to there, and the hospice is really nice, openly, the big room, so he has big room. So actually the Sangha member helps a lot, really the 24 hours.
We had people who were kind of taking shifts and there around the clock.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah. So we wish everybody.
Yeah, everyone can have those conditions.
I think that's really important. But that the that and the thing so labia data, and Pentoyo, and thing as the deed of your Chigo Mayimba, Chigmata, Shindo Yuna, go to the Chumasi, Marwati, as a template on Sobata Soyuna, or Satual Tembi, some material Hanadina Yomarwa, then how Mawana, Yatamiko, Tashokila, Nayira, Tenepe, Chua, Damanda Yori, Tenepe, Hananda, Mandayori, Tenet, Tonanda, Mandayori. Basically, the pain, Damanda Yuri Galatane, Hananda, Takarsevo, Gacha, this also tragic Tenepe. Carsenetic, Tanzimbatan, Tenet, Topata, Mobo Yungua. Tangas and Juma, he temporarily Sana. Oh, Tama, in Sari. Ta consulting Juma to search the temple, do Jumela temple, you Sari, Melon temple. That is all. That's how our kitchen is.
So, if so, it's really beneficial to be kind of aware of what these different signs are that are associated with the death process, because if we don't recognize them, then we'll become really disoriented and there will be more suffering. So as earth dissolves into water and we have these really strange sensations and we kind of don't know what's going on, and then we become really fearful and disoriented, and it can be really challenging. And there's painful, maybe pain that we're experiencing in the body, and then on top of that there is this fear that is triggered by this sense of feeling disoriented and not really knowing what's going on, which can make the whole process much more stressful. But if we are able to be like, oh, I recognize what's happening, this is the dissolution of earth into water, then there's a sense of knowing what's going on, and okay, I can be prepared, I'm dying.
Nanta Hepa de Lata, see you major.
So, may long Latin Picabla?
Oh, may long the Tangla.
Oh, yeah, then long.
Oh, may long the Tempicabla, Takari, Nant Dala, Hepa, see major. Say Lamba Jungs, Nick, say what I'm massive to me when we are made. Nant Dala.
So when fire is dissolving into wind, there is there are the inner signs of sort of like flickering light, or sort of like fireflies that are seen in sort of like periods of kind of a feeling of like light, and then the absence of light, or some luminosity, or some sort of radiance, and then like a splotchy radiance or lack of radiance. So these are the inner signs.
That is long that in non long number Hipala Tembic Tabla, Chi Catala, Carrior Senatine, O Tenets, sharing boya tani ya na do to mare sta o chebio sarwa.
So then when wind dissolves into consciousness, the outer sign of this is that the breathing becomes more layered and the exhalations become longer and the inhalations become more difficult to achieve. So there's like a long exhalation and then sort of more difficulty on the in-breath.
Oda di ka na ngato ta jin nam ju no we na ngato tsai ke ta long nga yo le long nga la ka se na ta long nga ke cham ho lo den cha lo we sa res nam ju no we na ngato tsai be long nga de la ka la wor na tene te ro change se na tene ngato ta ka ta ya la so ba ta tene ji ka so dong ya la so ba ta te yung yo ro 제가 너 얘기 다 걸리 functioning 되게 용어를 쓰네 지금 토셀 그런 것도 남주도나 컨트롤링 배나 김발라서 보다 더 좋게 돼요. 대충 매워 적어서와 특히 되게 잡지 클롱 저도 정말다 책이 내려요. 책이 내야 어떻게 정말 다 수고 좀 양을 더려. 대 정말라 지금 아주 수고도 도나이 잘 벌어 사나이 도나이 tene menyam kalong kendu tene kekta karsa ko supo kinam dam ju ki system supo ju ya ta je khan song me wa chal go sarwa tene finally karcha go sana so song zi long ta nam ju na so sem de lo wa functioning tene ka la tene song zi long ten ga this.
So then finally with this, there's a full breakdown of the 5 principal winds, the root winds. So there's the wind of the ascending winds, which are what enable us to like speak and to swallow and to breathe. And so this breaks down and one kind of gradually stops breathing. Then the evacuating winds, which kind of, are what govern sort of being able to, pass urine and evacuate our bowels and so forth. So this then kind of breaks down fully, and at this point there might be like, an evacuation of the bowels. And then there's also the pervading winds, which usually reside kind of in the joints, and help to govern, the movement of the body. But at this point, with that breaking down, the body becomes really stiff, kind of like a stone or like earth, it becomes really kind of stiff and hard. And then there is a full breakdown of the digestive winds or the fire winds, which usually help all of the systems of the body to function, especially like the digestive processes. And so then, there's like a full loss of heat to the body. And then finally, the kind of breakdown or snuffing out of the life force winds. And so at that point, one physically dies.
Okay, so maybe we can have some short break. Okay, so do we have some questions or comments?
Is the life force seems indivisible from, would it be, what word is there, is life force indivisible from Rigpa?
Oh, life force wind.
Yes, that's different than life force.
Yeah. Diniti Sogzin.
Maridadi
So,
Sogzin.
and Sogzin.
Ford, yeah. In the life forces, the good pattern device, Maris, the physical chabior.
Yeah. So the question was, is life force and Rikpa, which is a Dzogchen term for intrinsic awareness, are these the same? And he said no, because is there a connection there? Because he said no, because the life force and the life force winds are physical. Purely physical. Yeah.
It ends with the physical life, the life force of that life ends.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas continues.
The life forces lamnali tangi long number hepathems yakinibu ko jipano chabio saris.
So it's sort of like, so when the wind dissolves into consciousness, so that Soulzin, which are the life force winds, that is kind of snuffed out at that moment, and that is what marks like the actual physical moment of death.
And similarly, birth, life force, and consciousness, does, from a Tibetan point of view, do they arise simultaneously? These mysteries, I don't know.
Right. The Tedua Morala Batana position of Cosetta. The Casadana of Pa Ma need a Kotata Dene, Tene Casada number Heba Hugua. That number Heba Hugua, then go formed of Chagres. Ina Yatika life forces, Pecheta Tarung.
So actually, with the birth process, when there is, what happens is, the father and mother drops kind of unite or converge with one another, and the consciousness goes in between those two. Then they fully merge with the consciousness in between, and that happens like the first stages of form, the physical form of the body start to take place, and the consciousness is there. But he thinks at that point that the life force wind is not yet developed.
Each week, la yara salon chudine tama de la karcha beore lama tene ngazoda teritine de lebadang dewe kini bo chabiorwa dewa dewe kitini tikinum ko sayorwa dewe za tene yardone lebik leja de chabiosaris.
So there's a lot of detail in the 6 yogas of Naropa that speaks to the formation of the body that happens like after conception and up until the being is born. And the first thing that develops are actually the channels, the networks of channels, but it starts at the navel and at the brain, like with the brain.
That tea goblet in it, taco walked not to tender the physically walked on to your maritina title channel you with Jim Sandel then it walked the oxygen.
And so then the sort of, of course the being is not breathing yet, but the system has developed and the winds start to develop once the channels are developed.
I think channels and wind energy is like basically together, I think.
Yeah, so maybe not once, but together with.
And yet, from our point of view, like the zygote or the two eggs are alive, you know what I mean? From a Western point of view.
The two eggs?
The eggs, like the mother, from our point of view.
The egg and sperm.
Egg and sperm, they're alive, like the whole life force thing. Yeah.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
The life force.
Yeah,
and there would be life force even
can't
at that
find
time.
this life force. In the West, scientists cannot find the life force. But we would say each of those are alive. Anyway.
This picture the use grace. Ngatu dana di keda chitang dana jerem tedang dene ngatu birth chipares jerem monjang ngachi siya kidwa.
He said, yeah, like he thinks that we can also think of it in that way, that there's not a contradiction there. And the generation stage, like the stages of development at the time of conception and with the development of the fetus, actually, so the stages of meditation in the generation stage, like the 5 stages of awakening, which are the 5 stages of generating the form of the deity, correspond with development in or what occurs in this birth process. So like the first is the ground of emptiness, and that is like the empty space of the mother's womb. And so then from within that emptiness, the first thing that arises is like there's the red blood of the mother, the drop of the mother, and the white seminal essence or drop of the father, which corresponds with the visualization of the sun and moon. So like the sun and moon seat, right? So there's like emptiness and then the lotus, sun and moon.
Life rate la budo koram progress doya ta khani dogo lamna tene ko yungjuk nambando chin form shugu sarwa o tene tene ko yo wanda oji.
And so to your point about like the sperm and egg being alive, like it's true because when they join and then there's just like this goopy thing, and that goopy thing kind of looks like a seed syllable. So then that kind of is the arising of the third stage of the 5-stage arising in the form of the deity is the arising of the seed syllable, which is the life force of the deity.
That's so interesting. It corresponds. Yeah. When a person is dying and they receive morphine or other drugs through hospice, how does that interfere with their bardo or their transition?
Yeah. So the question was for the people on Zoom, when someone is dying and the person who is dying is given really strong drugs or medication like morphine, how might that affect their dying process?
Dati penna practitioner do ina. Tine ta nga tabi kontiwa na yere nga tota ko himo mahwi la nga tota dissolution ha koya da tine jegla ma thaya da ta so do ina tine pekale ka ko sarwa.
The morphine, So it can really affect it for a practitioner at least, because as he said, if somebody is dying and then what they want is to really have their mind focused single-pointedly, on their Lama, on the Dharma, on their deity or the Buddha. And so if they're given morphine, then it might really affect their ability to do that.
Yena yang dati ko yang nga to dati yele karsana ko consciousness physically body ko kachabiwares.
However, that's sort of at the initial stages because eventually there's a separation between the consciousness and the physical that happens.
Yena yang nga to dati lesungdo ben physical da mit tondo we unari kataya mewa no da tonya mewa no da tende yubi ina yang da ko physically tongo yo mare kataya yo mare yimbi ina yang tende nga so chu chi ya da tende da ben nga so samne lama la te yo re tende la me mutu chi la growa da la me ko mutu chi ya la so wa powa da ya la so ba te so la tende kona ka ko re es la budo.
But because, when the physical and the consciousness separate, there's also, the mind can still feel, can still hear. So, you know, if for instance there is a lama and they're pointing out, you know, giving introduction to the dying person, like, oh, you're dying, this is what's happening, like then the consciousness will be able to understand that. And for instance, if somebody's doing POA practice for them, they're able to understand that or be benefited by that.
Even though physically lack,
Even
physically
even if physically it seems
looks like
they can't.
What about the case of sudden death when there's no actual time for the dissolution?
Sudden, yeah. So then the other question was, what about in the case of a sudden death where these processes of dissolution don't happen like that in identifiable stages?
That and similar check yourself on the in depending on Gachi sudden the ship in a young Takashi yourself depending inside Gachi Konahaku Yosamawa, Hiyomihaku Yosomaris.
So yeah, the same process happens, but it's maybe not as easy to recognize, and it depends. Like some people, especially in the case of sudden death, will become very disoriented. They won't know what has happened.
In some practitioners, if the chance to Penatan, Nashon somebody making on a accident or the accident chance on somebody. Tindik Kabla. Penny power Yamnachi, Padon Yamnachi, and the Tinido, Nashido, somebody. The second kick now for chance yours, or Tortoga chance your turtle grace.
But sometimes it's said that actually for a practitioner, sometimes there's like in a sudden death, there's like a stronger chance in that moment for liberation if the practitioner is able to say, like I say, if they died in an accident and then they're like, oh, I died. Now is the time, like they can, and they practice POA or they practice Bardo, then like right in that moment of recognizing that they have died, they have a very strong opportunity or chance in that moment for liberation.
And also before the death, so something like, so some people may know, some people not, some people may know accident, okay.
Oh, now I'm gonna die.
Like that moment, if you remember POA, then to the liberation quickly, immediately.
Oh, okay, so maybe before, you meant before, not after. Yeah. So yeah, he meant in that moment if they recognize, now I'm gonna die, before it happens.
And some people, they have chance, even though like, cut the body, everything, but still they have thinking about a couple, seconds or whatever, they have chance to pray or chance to. Also, maybe they know I'm dying, and also.
There's a couple online questions. So one from Danny is, what are your suggestions for how we can ask for our bodies to be treated while we are dying and after we die in Western society as Buddhist practitioners?
Tadi kita general which Pumbo this Habu, Stans Tandinema Yungrua, Pumbo Tangas of Mishason Labdu, when I hear your marriage, Karsangako, Chilo dissolution, Tagila, Vanangere, such loss of a Tambari or Chibari, Inayam, Namkona hear your marriage.
Well, for one thing, what you might want to do, and you might want to put in your will or instruct to people who are around you, to do, probably best to put it in writing, legally stamp it, is that it is good to leave the body for as long as you can without disturbing it. So, because when the body has physically died, there's still the process of inner dissolution happening, and so the consciousness is still there, united with the body.
Not yet to die. Right?
You haven't actually died. Like physically, you might be pronounced dead, but
the breathing,
but you're no longer breathing.
Die,
but there's still subtle processes of dissolution happening, and so if the body can remain undisturbed for as long as possible, then this is this can be helpful.
Tanga heke nima zondo tini labgreda trida distana kaporwa. Immina immediately chia second yo samare stilida. In a dissolution mostly ta bana chutu to dunji candidate depending de go place.
Gandela?
In a dissolution cheala. Go yores sama heala.
So ngadu what?
Chutu ngato.
So traditionally, the body is left without disturbing it for 3 days. That is hard in this culture to get to, like, for the permission or the ability to do that. But at least, for the inner dissolution to occur, like at least, 5 to 6 hours, like just wherever that person died, just letting the body sit without moving it, without doing anything, for as long as like legally can be allowed, essentially. And I think the cremation yeah, so I was just asking because I thought, well, it's also often like you can move the body but then not cremate it for like 3 days or so, but he said actually at that point it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I had heard that there's a very complex energy not in the heart, and you're supposed to leave the body for 5 days until that completely unwinds. Is that?
Somebody said they had heard that it is important to let the body sit for at least 5 days because there is a complex energy knot at the heart that has to unravel.
Well, the possible is.
And so Drupon said that's possible. Yeah.
Because I thinking of the two dams here, so you're depending it's two dams here, the 2 weeks in the
Yeah, because some people, we talked a little bit about Tukdam. Some people who die in Tukdam can remain in Tukdam for like 2 weeks.
In that Tukdam, the condition when they must use what you.
But he'll talk more about Tukdam later.
I had a friend who passed, and they did let him stay there for 3 days. And I was able to go during that time. And you could still feel that person, spirit there. During that time, the body was definitely, quiet, but certainly there was still the energy of the person.
How are they able to do that? Was there something they did? It was a long time ago.
Maybe
Yeah.
10 or 15, 20 years.
Okay.
Well,
So
usually
somebody
when they were rural, away from the city.
So somebody just said that she had a friend that passed away maybe 15, 20 years ago, and their body was left for 3 days without being disturbed, and she went to visit that person at that time after they had died, but their body was still there, and their body was very still and clearly dead, but she could really feel the presence of the spirit of that person. Their consciousness was still very much present. Mm-hmm.
You can talk to your doctor or your hospice, because we've done it a number of times here in Tucson.
Okay.
We use dry ice.
I've heard that,
Yes.
dry ice.
But it's not that difficult, because if it's an anticipated death, so that, and then the mortuary just will pick them up, 3 days later. It's not that hard. You're just speak to your doctor in hospice.
So actually, someone in the audience who is a doctor is now telling us that she has had, there have been a number of people that she has known who have died and had that instruction in their will that they wanted their body to be left for 3 days, and that often they were able to do that, and often with dry ice that they would put.
In Tucson, you need dry
In
ice.
Tucson, you need dry ice so that the body won't start decomposing. But that then the instruction for the mortuary, I don't know why I'm having a hard time with that word, they can pick up the body like 3 days later. That's the instruction, so that it is in fact possible. So, but it's something obviously you have, because I know I personally have been very surprised at how quickly bodies are picked up, like that it's just like, so it really is something that if you're concerned about, you really should write it and make sure it's in your will.
I just want to mention the VA hospital has left people for 3 days that have asked for it ahead of time.
So Patty's also saying that with the VA hospital that they have been able to leave bodies of people for 3 days who have asked for that, who have requested it. Yeah.
And then my mother passed away 15 years ago in Cleveland, and the standard was 3 days to hold the body.
To hold the body. Yeah.
Right. So I asked for 2 more days, and they took it away. They were going to cremate her, and they have like freezer drawers, like a fridge.
Yeah.
And they just put the body in the drawer, like you see on the TV shows.
So someone else is saying that in Cleveland, Ohio, sort of the standard maximum amount of time that was allowed for was like 3 days, but that there was someone who passed away, and that this person, that she asked for 2 more days. So they still took the body away after 3 days, but then kind of put them in a freezer before cremating their body. So they were able to at least not cremate the body for another 2 days.
Some more questions?
Okay,
quickly.
that's a bad question.
Just quickly a related question. How much disturbance is too much disturbance? I mean, what level of, like moving the body, for instance, to a freezer drawer, is that?
That's
too much?
with disturbance. So like if you can leave it for 3 days, that's best, but
Right.
it can't always work out that way.
Right. So moving the body is the big problem.
All right, so that, yes, but same time, I think so. Also, this not really everybody, you know. So every person is some reason, I don't know, their karma or I don't know, some just mind is quickly
Separates from the
separated. But some, yeah, I think maybe there is, if we can keep the body, probably maybe, I don't know, weeks. And also the meditators, so they kind of like, they use this body. So that's, I think maybe here, I think about I talked to later, but maybe now it's good. So the meditators, the body is not still fresh, you know, so this look like life, but except no breathing, but no kind of, what call this, rotten or...
It doesn't decompose.
Right, so this just still fresh. So I think reason, right, is I think so meditators and then the science people come, but they said that this still like heart center is the warmth, they're not losing. So that's why body is kind of like bodies. They said they're exactly like the normal body. So normally I said this body is died and then like become like clay or like rocks or like, you know, just right now it's totally different with rocks and this body is different, you know, just. But after that, so then we could become more clay or, you know, just so no longer in the body. So, but some, the meditators, they're not like that. So the remaining no problem issues. But I think also like really depending. So also these kind of meditators, many ways I think some kind of body is kind of smaller and nice, and some maybe just despair, you know. So I think different.
Like rainbow body.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my question actually. About the rainbow light body, like what cause or what effect?
I think practitioners, they can, nga sa tera wa, rawang saya gitu wa, rawang top lab do tina, damna chia yusaris.
Yeah, so once there's like control, you know, or mastery, you know, that is achieved, then there is really independence. over the death process and a lot of things that can be sort of these miraculous things that happen when somebody dies.
다 가시리 양 인지 전부 강한 같은데 요사です. 인지 쇼체나 되네. 대 정보 버리를 놓고 요사라고.
So actually, rainbow body is specifically said to be connected with really strong compassion. That when somebody has very, very immense compassion, that they sometimes achieve rainbow body.
Ben ngatsodi my monastery komba jangken lama ji yorwa. Tene ko ta ngatso yul nyama de leprosy tene na yosarwa. Tene di tene tilumba de manaya chi tene korang leprosy na yoris.
Or rainbow body too.
아래마다 tembo 기회로.
So, yeah, we'll call myself.
올해다 ngaso lamaji yoris ngaso komaja lam purgata his komaja nyawa. Ti lamate ke karsena korang ngaso lumbalata ti nasa na yorwa. Ti nawi kablata korang na yoris. Korang na di tini mikima karu so sama.
So there was the founder of Drupon Rinpoche's monastery in Tibet, somebody named Purgatashi, who, when he died, actually he died of leprosy. He had leprosy, and he to not infect other people, he died. He went into isolation. No, I didn't understand. Leprosy now.
Really, tene mhimbala kon chaya chi tola tene corona yorwa.
Mishimba draya did you do? Na yore di yaboko.
Yeah, so na yore person nagumaro mhimba corona na.
Oh, like through Tonglen or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So he actually did this intentionally. He got leprosy to sort of, because it was, I think, a contagion that was in that area at that time, and so he took the leprosy upon himself so that other people wouldn't get ill.
Yinayada 같이 벌써다 corona tene attendant 이거래서.
But he had two attendants.
Yinayada supposed to corona sawol be tinichiya isarwa.
And the two attendants would, were like, especially with a leprosy body, but like a body that's died of leprosy, then you're supposed to, for contagion reasons, bury the body. So they were going to bury the body.
Yinayada coronita lama를 대바요로 되는 고베리 지요 말이스.
But they had so much faith, and actually you were supposed to alive bury Jaya. Oh, okay. Here's like, we don't have to say that. But so they had so much faith in their Lama, they couldn't bring themselves to bury him. So then at night they took him to like a very remote place. To die in this very remote place. And so they were, gonna leave him there, but like sort of in a, like still nearby, they, took a rest in the evening and made some tea and drank some tea. Oh, in the morning. So they carried him there, and then the next day they were getting ready to leave, and they were making tea. In the morning they drank tea. So he was kind of like there was like a blanket there that had been like the body had been wrapped in. But then when they sort of glanced over at it before they left, it looked like it was just the blanket, like there was no body there. And then so it was like just a blanket, no body, and then just like one like piece of skull about like the size of a hand.
And the teeth
Like a
are
skull
around
cup.
you.
And what?
Around you.
And a self-arisen ah syllable on the bone.
Oh, that today, that rainbow body, that's that rainbow body.
So that is an example of rainbow body.
So what happened to the body, Drupon? What happened to the body?
It disappeared. Yeah.
Wow.
Right, that did get on to the that issue and I get it. Not so nga say a thousand zimba say a Tisolatine Rangi Tobio Mare Tombare Melamna Gire Jumana Gire Labiorwa. What that thing on your Kansa telling what the Toyona can be.
So I just also want to clarify something about this term. So rainbow body latu nato sama gari sangre samne di yang pinati jasongi ura wachagre tampo ne yaugre dinada whatever. Yeah. So so I'm just clarifying because like I'm also starting to get the picture on this because I think when we hear the word rainbow body, we assume that the body like becomes rainbow light and then like dissolves into space. But that's not the meaning of rainbow body. The meaning of rainbow body is this. He said it does disappear. The body disappears because like ordinarily we have self-grasping, we think we really exist, the body really exists, everything has true existence, but as we learn, this is misapprehension of how things actually are, that everything is actually dreamlike and illusory and has no real inherent existence, that everything is empty, it is like a dream, it is like an illusion, and so when that dreamlike illusory nature is really understood, then when it's really achieved, then phenomena doesn't appear to be solid in the way that we normally think that it is, and this is why the body can disappear. This is why realized beings can move through walls or leave their footprints in rocks and so forth.
Rainbow body is the question is. That rainbow say I take home as a yoris, Jayore, no labere. Inangatso tuyayo mare, simiayo mare, teneko yellow gray, yes on the kawa, yes, hapayo mare.
And so the reason it's called rainbow body is because a rainbow appears very clearly and vividly in the sky. We see it, but it doesn't really exist. Like the colors are all there, but if you try to grasp it, you can't grasp it, and it just dissolves into space. It vividly appears, but it dissolves into space, and there's no substance there. So, and where does it go? We don't know. It just disappears.
Okay. That can give you an idea. That's the songs long lamnade. Long number hebala, 10 lamnade. That telecachabare lavina, Tanya to his songs.
So where we left off, was with this kind of snuffing out of the life force wind, and this occurs when wind dissolves into consciousness. And so then we have, and this is also where the breath comes to a full halt, and the body is pronounced dead.
Or we said that the songs long,
So the life force winds are no longer functioning.
That telecarson, that hanky thing was a rapa, nishu, chawan jungwashi, tembatata, chinsabares.
So at this point, the course 20 core stages of dissolution have been fully completed, and the dissolution of the 4 elements has fully occurred and fully completed.
4 elements and
And also the root winds and the branch winds have all, been fully snuffed out, or kind of, have like fully stopped functioning.
다 숨바들라 힌드 차와서 다 단기 차와라 보다 힌드 차와라 나지 탭솜시오레스.
So then there are the very, very subtle. So these processes of dissolution actually are considered to be for, like, so the 20 course stages of dissolution are coarse. Then there's the subtle, the dissolution of the elements, and the decline, like fully ending of the functioning of the branch and root winds. These are actually considered to be more subtle, but then you have very, very subtle processes of dissolution, and this is what occurs after the body is dead, like someone is no longer breathing, and then with these inner stages of dissolution are 3 very subtle stages of dissolution.
나리다 디르와티 힌드 차와
And how about you?
나지 탭솜 나임베.
So these very extremely subtle stages of dissolution are they have these terms: increase, appearance, increase, and near attainment.
오다 틀라 가시다 단기 넘버 해봐라 템이요. 단 넘버 해봐 나와라 템마지 그래스.
So first, so after wind has dissolved into consciousness, then consciousness dissolves into appearance.
다 디갑라 가르치기요래 랍나 다 단기디 맞어 디실랍 요러와 수포 칸디스 차바레 슬랍드 가르세나 파케 성 마성 넘버 헤바 솜나 떼네 되네 다 수포티 차상 차러와.
So what's happening here is kind of like the reverse of what happens in the death process. In the birth process. So when at the time of conception, there is like the father element, and the mother element, and then the consciousness, and these 3 kind of come together and form the initial form of the being that is going to further develop and be born.
다 남주에 있는 것은 life 가리오래 라비나 되네 파에 기다 주도 되는 것은 달리오래 라고도.
So then while we're alive, throughout our life, we still have the father and mother element in our body. The father element is said to abide kind of at the point between the eyebrows.
되네 다 아메이크 주도 돼 누파티
And
대발이요.
the mother element abides below the navel.
되네 다 단다디 수보고 치바 들어가라라 넘버 해봐 나와라 템베 갑라 되네 다 되네 파이 되네 단다디 다 넘버 해봐데 넘버 해봐 주 되네
And so what happens is that right when one stops breathing, this starts to break down, and the father element descends from the point between the eyebrows down to the heart level. And so that's what we call appearance. These are terms. These are technical terms. It's called appearance. It's just the name. Sometimes it's referred to as a whiteout, because what happens is there's kind of like a white color that sort of like is this sort of suffuse sort of whiteness that happens.
I think this is maybe better, so we can. On that kind of that in tea gabla, that took Julie Yobeke, Hedant, Topa, some sort of Gabla, stick of the Gabla.
And so then what also happens at that time of the whiteout is that all of the concepts that are connected with the affliction of aversion or anger come to a halt.
Tene Tirana Yita Tosi, Tene Ya Teveke, Tene Ta Mike, Tene Sound Scenario, Mike in the Patatini, Yankali Lepres.
And then following that, the red element of the mother that dwells at the navel or below the navel comes up to the heart level. So it ascends up to the heart level. And so then this is what is referred to as increase. And it is also sometimes referred to, that's the term, the technical term, it's also sometimes called the red out, because there's kind of this sensation of kind of redness that happens there. And then at that point, the 40 kind of concepts or mental states that are connected with craving or desire come to a halt. So what and so you have appearance that dissolves into increase, and increase dissolves into near attainment. So then at this time of increase dissolving into near attainment, and so what happens here is that you have the white element of the father descending to the heart, the red element of the mother ascending up to the heart, and the consciousness kind of blacks out in between these two. It's like it sort of faints away, and through the coming together of these two, just like it kind of was the opposite at the time of conception. No, Sherang lapsar ducha des sherang sumju sosum ducha jibju dine maripadu. So then at this time, with the fainting away of the consciousness, then the 7 kind of concepts that are associated with ignorance, or that are the nature of ignorance or unawareness, come to a halt. And at that time, it's also sometimes called the blackout, because there's like a total fainting away, or like a black kind of just darkness.
More hidot in the cheese on Hitzawa, members of Hitzardo Lavioris. Carry 45 seconds.
Oh, wow, Koma song. Yeah.
Lavio, in a monk now, can hear good in it. Now, Garbo Harson, Marbo Harson, Maho Harson, Labidua.
So then that's when the death really happens, is with that blackout. And actually there was a woman in Vermont who was pronounced dead for maybe 45 seconds or something. And she said she remembers actually having this experience of white, red, and black.
So I think maybe 44 seconds, then he come back.
And then she came back. So in that case, it happened very quickly. But then there is there's this is another term, the near attainment, which is a term, and then there's what refers to near attainment dissolving into clear light.
That tea kabla tanozo tangi konti I think this is maybe a little bit better to 나초다 당보 나초 풍보테 당보 I think the 제와디 디 사건이야 보이사랬다. 그래서 나초다 콜와 참비 kabla 되네 고마렉바 tellatene 나초 콜와 참비 거스다. 콜와 제발랭 거와. 이나 대제발랭 kabla 다 코랑 마렉바 tellatene 되네 표지에나 되네 말아차 팔라당 부모제나 팔아자 말아다음에 고다디 냠도 당긴 가서 감감말 파다 말다 이 넘버 해봐 좀 그러와 저도 냠도 용뭐 특성도 냠도 라디오 요레스
So
That's easier to understand.
So it's helpful to understand this, to think about what happens at the time of birth. So when we, the reason why we wander in samsara, or take birth in samsara in the first place, in cyclic existence, is because of ignorance. So because of the root cause of ignorance, we take birth. And what happens is that our gender is determined by what happens with the afflictions when the consciousness kind of enters in between, the drops of the mother and father. So if there is attachment to the father and aversion to the mother, then the being is usually born female. And if there is attachment to, right? Did I say that correctly? Mm-hmm. If there's attachment to the mother and aversion to the father, then the being usually takes birth as a male. And then once the consciousness has fully entered, in between the two, and the being kind of like takes shape, then all the 3 or 5 poisons of afflictive emotion are there together, with the consciousness.
어다 디리다 단다 될랑 가서다 용모바 수험 될라 반드시로 지나 해당 되네 똑바 숨지 속송당 되네 도착 똑바 협주당 데모 똑바 드디다 군도 자주다 라파서 못하나 되네 용모베 똑바 자주요레스.
And so they're said to be kind of, as far as coarse afflictions, like 33 concepts that are connected with aversion or hatred or anger, 40 connected with craving, desire, and 7 connected with ignorance. So that's 80 altogether.
다 단다 까람 말람 나람 sombo 챕드 다대 참마다 장벌에서 나사리스다 영원에서 해자리스.
But when at death, then what happens is that with the white out, the red out, and the black out, these 80 concepts of afflictive emotion are blocked. They come to a halt. And so there's a moment free of affliction. And at that moment, the clear light luminosity of awareness becomes visible. It sort of shines forth or becomes present.
And
this happens for everyone, whether they're a practitioner or not. And so for a practitioner, there's a real opportunity for enlightenment right there, because there's this moment where they can really recognize the clear light luminosity of awareness for what it is, because there's no obscurations. There's not the obscurations of afflictive emotions. And so this is what is referred to as the meeting of the mother and child luminosity. Or we also can refer to this as the Dharmakaya. So there's the opportunity to be liberated within the Dharmakaya, to recognize the Dharmakaya, to recognize the clear light luminosity of awareness, this meeting of mother and child luminosity.
다 배경가서 키고 다 된다는 것도 맹강나로 people died. 뭐 망보지 요래다 통사비 지을 때는 그때 스카카 수보도 야보노 차도 요래스다. majority도 와. 통사비 휴블라 그때 집때네 뭐 tukdamna begi mina tene be shato be humbondo tene be chut be no yabondo chalioris.
And so actually,
I don't know this the medicine then that I'm not sure about.
Actually, like even in the hospital, after even like non-practitioners, pretty much for a lot of people, he thinks you can sort of identify when this is happening because often when people have died, there's like a point at which there's kind of this real sense of like peacefulness and this kind of freshness to the complexion that comes back to the person who has died. Like there's kind of like a softness and gentleness and a little more radiance that suddenly becomes apparent on the face of the person who has died. He doesn't know, maybe like it could be that medication really interferes with that, and then maybe not so much, but often that can happen for pretty much everyone who's died. So for somebody at that time, for someone who's a practitioner, if they're able to, again, to be kind of cognizant of that practice, of that process, to recognize it for what it is, there is a real potential for enlightenment at that time.
That depends on what here now. That's not the kind of goal you want. Go tambo mo sama cha cha ro. Then ne tami kong shu na yire ben Buddha sem dang na zo sem ni jikwa ri la go ro wa. Yin ya right now jikwa yo ri ti na ya. And
so,
how long have I this ringo yore, Gahitung yore labudua? Yine Tikalata, some of them chasada, Kisi Tikala Tebano, more heavy, then the Santis out.
So, like and this is because it is, as we say, like our own mind and the mind of the Buddha are the same. But right now we can't really say that. We can't really say our mind is Buddha because we are temporarily obscured because we have afflictive emotions, and so we can't really identify our true nature to be that of Buddha. But at the time of death, because the afflictive emotions stop or they come to a halt, and there is like this pure, they're no longer there, and so then the true nature of mind dawns, like, totally unobstructed, unobscured, and so there's a real potential there to see it, to recognize it, if one has faith, if one is able to really kind of identify what's happening. So, because for some people, and there's a difference, for some people this period of clear light might be very short, actually. For some people, it might be really kind of extended. It might be that it lasts for quite a while, and so there is the potential there. Of course, it's better if it lasts for a little longer. There's more potential for recognition. So there's somebody. So what happens for somebody who achieves Tugdam is that they're able to recognize the clear light luminosity of awareness and sustain that recognition, and so then they prolong that period where they're still kind of in the body, but they're abiding in a clear light. And so they're sustaining that period of abiding in a clear light after they have died, but they're still kind of connected with the body. So that is what happens when someone achieves Tukadam.
Okay.
So you hear that all the time, the light of the sun and the mother merge into one.
Right.
Yeah, in different forms, different expressions, but they're essentially saying the same. So that's what it's referring to.
The test does it gonna yabo penabu the nyamlinchi begi. What's it? Lana dibibe.
Eta terwa rectangular imba and sanji ki same down. That's the same. Yawa mi cha say ade teres.
Re yeni yang ma dang bu de test.
Ta ma no ina terwa ma de and sanji ki same. Then protect the hidden.
Oh, Buddha. Ma de samsung ma de deshik ningpo Buddha ma so nyamlinchi begi de nyamlingi yang de usel de.
Okay, lang na digro.
Okay, chikare nikalana.
Mata ta ko lang na digro.
So what, yes, exactly. So essentially it's like, because we talk about, our mind and the mind of the Buddha is indivisible. And so that's what's happening. It's kind of like a merging. So actually there's kind of two ways you can talk about it. Either so sometimes the child luminosity is referring to the recognition we develop in meditation while we're alive. And then the mother luminosity is like the Buddha nature. So that luminosity that we've been training ourselves in recognizing is like, I see the mother, so there's kind of this recognition that happens based on the practice that you've developed during your life. Another way of describing it that it's sometimes described is that the mother is like the Buddha, the mind of the Buddha, and the child is like the Buddha nature.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I got it. Either way works.
Either way. Either way.
Yeah.
So if we're with a loved one who has just passed, and if there are physical signs of them entering into the clear light, is there some way we can help them recognize that?
Oh, so the question was, if you're with someone who is dying, and there's signs, for the person who's alive that maybe that person has entered into clear light, is there a way to help them to recognize that, the person who has died?
Re tati terwa tangi huwa ba so Bardo todo se chomson o tika blate o to tindi igore start drain them the hit tanda hit drogu yona then to chia yores.
So yeah, for instance, that's why, there was a question that came up earlier about the Bardo todo, and so that kind of accompanies each of these stages that happen, in the death process. So for instance, in the recitation of that text, there is a pointing out to the person who's dying, now this is happening, this is your true nature, the clear light luminosity of your own mind, recognize it, you can recognize it.
Also, this someone dying, so this always Lama or teacher be there, so even though he's live, so now is your prepared, you get this experience, no worry, this and that, and also after that passed. So then they give the directions. So
ideally you would have your what they call a pillow lama that's there when you die.
Tene yang mora la
That's
na
literally
yile
what they
tene
call it.
ti ita jikarina ra ke tsawa yu jo jime karina 통소나 무슨 개화체야 요래 있으니까 고지 단다 가도 통이나 되니 개체 쇼트 가서나 무슨 개화치나 되니 팽게리 개화치냐들 되니 related 제와 유바 대단한 이 콘서트야 draw you what you can choose.
However, even if there's not like a lama, a spiritual person present, a spiritual teacher present, the loved ones, so both, there are actually two aspects to this. So like the power of wholesome thought and action on the part of the loved ones of the person who has died is really meaningful at that time of death, and throughout that process of death, the person, like as long as they're in the bardo and even into their next incarnation. So it's very important for the people who are around the dying person to support them with the practice of virtue and through wholesome intentions, prayers, practice, mantra, whatever you can do. And even actually independent of being around the person immediately, like who is dying, when people, loved ones, engage in virtue, like do virtuous practices, then it can really help the person who's dying. If you're connected, if there's like a karmic connection there, then it's really beneficial for loved ones to really be focused on virtue for the person who's dying. Yeah, they're not loving. Yeah, so even if they're not around the person,
these people died long time ago. So
even if they've died a long time ago, yeah.
Prayer of the power.
The power of prayer.
Yes, the bishop thing.
So we'll do the short dedication on page 38. By this virtue, may I achieve the all-knowing state, and may all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. May the teachings of the great Virginia Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of independence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara.
Thank you. So now today that's what this level is. That's a life on level.
So this is really easy to just talk about this right now while we're alive.
Today level mostly that's a life experience. Today level among that's a life. That's a life experience over.
Oh, okay. Sorry, yeah. So actually what we've covered today is a little bit easier to talk about because it's also kind of shared experience with like while we're living, but tomorrow what is discussed is a little bit harder because it's really like what happens during like the Chuni Bardo, really like after one is like fully dead and, in the deeper stages of Bardo.